guys, I'm Clarke, and today I'm having a look at slides and which slide is right for you. This has all come from a bit of an epiphany that I've had, a bit of a revelation when I discovered a new material that I'd not seen before. Sounds really dull, but it actually was quite a big difference. Before I get into it though, please make sure you like and subscribe. It really does make a massive difference to the channel, and when I reach 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to be giving away this pedal that is signed and was used on the recording of the latest Brave Rival album. Okay, so slides. First things first, you need to decide what finger you're going to put the slide on. Usually, most people use the middle finger, the third finger, or your pinky, leaving your other fingers free to play other things. For me, it kind of depends what I'm playing. For the most part, I use my third finger, and that means obviously a slightly larger slide. There are also shapes to think about. So here is a rock slide, which initially looks like a normal brass slide, but if you look closer, it's got a little cutaway to allow you to bend your finger easier, and a little cutaway there as well to help you grip it in the right place. The idea being that it fits and allows you to bend your finger, and then this allows you to hold it there. Similarly, here's my slide that I use when I use my little finger. It's got a ball end, which essentially means you can use the tip of your finger to play as well as barring across like this. You also get just simple metal slides, which just look like a bit of pipe, as well as what's called a pill bottle slide, which literally is an old-fashioned pill bottle. Now, none of these are obviously right or wrong, it's just what you prefer. The bulk of this video, though, I'm going to dedicate to the differences that material make, because they do actually make quite a lot of difference. So the kind of classic slides that you're most likely to come across are either chrome or brass. I have one of each here. This is a relatively cheap and therefore relatively light chrome slide. This is a more expensive and therefore heavier brass slide. The reason I mention the weight is, from my experience, the heavier a slide is, the more it sustains. Now, to my ear, there's quite a subtle difference between chrome and brass, but I'll demonstrate it now. Now, alternatively, you can go for a glass slide. Now, I've got a pill bottle one here, but you can also get ones shaped like the ones I just showed you that just happen to be made of glass. Now, there is an obvious drawback here. I used to have a rock slide like this. I used to have a glass one. It was great. It sounded great, but it was sitting on top of my amp once, fell off from vibrations, smash. That's the end of that. So this one's never been gigged, and that's why it still survives. I prefer not to use a glass slide simply because I don't want to be worrying about it shattering. But the advantage is they have a slightly warmer sound. Just sounds a lot warmer, a lot sweeter, so I do prefer it massively, although you do have to bear in mind the fragility of it. Now, for the recent few months, I've been using one of Taylor's ebony slides. And yes, by ebony, I mean it is made of wood. It comes from their offcuts from making their acoustic guitars. Now, I really like this slide. Obviously, it isn't going to shatter. I was expecting it to kind of groove from the strings, but it hasn't. And it's got a nice warm sound, so that drawback of brass and chrome, that kind of high end that some people don't like, including myself, you haven't got that problem. It's much warmer. Now, the drawback in comparison to glass is I don't think it's got quite the warmth and smoothness that glass has, but it certainly takes away that metallicness that chrome and brass have. The big downside that I've only just discovered is that it doesn't sustain nearly as well as some harder materials. So now we come on to the revelation I mentioned earlier. So this is a slide from a company I discovered at the recent London International Guitar Show. It's by a company called Celestial Slides, and it's made of porcelain ceramic, which immediately made me think of a teapot, but it works amazingly. And I should say at this point, this is not an endorsed video. I am not being paid to say this. I discovered this slide. I tried it for the first time at rehearsal last night and was blown away. So it's not as fragile as glass. I'm sure if you stamped it, it probably would break because it is ceramic, but it can survive a lot more rough and tumble than the glass one can. It's so much warmer than the metal slides. because it has a glass coating around the outside, which means you get that kind of glass tone. It's weighty, so you get the sustain, and the sustain is the thing that blew me away. Last night at rehearsal, I had to go back and forth between the wood one and this one just to check that it wasn't just the amp I was using in the studio that day. But no, the sustain on this is insane. Okay, finally, I want to show you something a little bit weird, just because I saw it, I ordered it, figured I'd try it out. It's not something that I use, but it is something, a really cool idea that I think for certain playing styles is a really, really cool idea. It's called a jet slide, and it looks nothing like a slide at all. It's kind of got, you can get brass or chrome, but it's, in my case, got the brass rod there, and then this sort of ring, and this paddle here. Now, some of you might recognize this. It's used extensively in Rival Sons by their guitarist Scott Holliday to great effect. Essentially, the idea is it goes on like a ring. You can use all 4 of your fingers, but then you press on that paddle or flap, whatever you want to call it, and then you can use it as a slide. Now, I initially thought that's never going to work. You've got a really tiny bit of metal. The contact isn't going to give you that kind of sustain. But I think because it's a solid rod of brass, I assume, or it's coated, it's solid metal, whether it's coated or not. And I think because it's solid, it has a bit more weight than you might realise. So actually the sustain isn't too bad. My issue with it is I do find it quite difficult to play with when you're used to a normal slide. And when you're not using it, I find it quite difficult to use my fingers as I normally would, because I've got this bit of metal attached to my hand. Obviously, with a lot of practice, you can get like Scott in Rival Sons, and you can use it fluidly with or without the slide. Now, what I'm going to finish up with is a side-by-side of each slide so you can hear the sustain, because a lot of people focus on the tonality differences, and obviously those are there, but to me, what really blew my mind last night with the porcelain ceramic one is the sustain it had. It just felt massive. It was warm, it was thick, but it also had the sustain and clarity. So yeah, good job. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed with the bell icon ticked to be notified of new videos. Have yourself a great day, and I'll see you next time.